I think it's very important that we're flooding the tunnels with
Hmm.
seawater, because the most important thing from an operational perspective on Israel's side is to get these terrorists above ground. Obviously, when they're in the tunnels that they are burrowed into, that they dug, they have an operational advantage. They know where they are, and we have to send our forces in to look for them. They know where the booby-trapped parts of their tunnels are. We don't. So the most important thing when you're fighting an enemy that's burrowed underground is to get them above ground so that you can find them and you can fight them and beat them. But it's much more difficult to do it when they're underground. And what was the second question that you asked?
Well, the Yahya Sinwar, the butcher from Khan Yunis,
Yeah.
he seems like one of the central leaders there, and the figure, he is a dead man walking, shows some real progress there.
Well, it's true, but I think it's much more important for us to be doing a lot less talking and a lot more action. I mean,
Mm.
one of the fears is that if we threaten him enough and he's surrounded by hostages, that he may just decide he might as well just kill them.
Sure.
I mean, there's sort of it becomes one of these things where I think silence is a better part of virtue on these issues. But yes, I mean, Sinwar can't continue to live. He just orchestrated the single largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And as your correspondent was saying, they've been making instrumental use of brutal gang rape of our women, treating them like sex slaves in order to terrify Israelis. I mean, this is just a standard issue jihadist warfighting doctrine. So these people are absolutely fanatical. They mean it when they say they want to annihilate the Jewish people. They
Yes.
proved it just,
Caroline,
in October. So we have to fight them.
to some of those horrific stories about the rape of women and the children and just the outrage, we also want to play a little bit of Prime Minister Netanyahu with his sharp criticism, saying, where are the women's rights groups, the UN and other organizations? Here are some of his comments just yesterday.
I say to the women's rights organizations, to the human rights organizations, you've heard of the rape of Israeli women? Horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation? Where the hell are you? I expect all civilized leaders, governments, nations to speak up against this atrocity.
How far would you take that? I mean, I saw a video from the International Red Cross's president, and it was just really focused on the casualties in Gaza and not the rape of Israelis.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is a combination of absolute prejudice against Jews, where Jewish women simply don't matter. And this really is a repeat of what we saw from the nations of the world during the Holocaust. I mean, so much of what was happening in Europe to the Jews of Europe was known, and it was known by the Red Cross, and it was known by the Roosevelt administration, and it was known by many, many, many governments throughout Europe and throughout the world, and they were basically fine with it.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't do anything to stop it. And so that's one of the things we're seeing. And another thing that we're seeing, I think, is just gross cowardice, that these organizations know that they are similarly being targeted by the jihadists that they've allowed to migrate to their countries and are now marauding through their streets and calling for the genocide of the Jews in their areas and blocking Christmas tree lighting ceremonies in their cities. And they're afraid. And so I think you have this noxious mix of truly disgusting, horrific hatred of Jews just manifesting itself in these international women's organizations and these international so-called human rights organizations and in many of the governments of the world. And it's
Yes.
mixed with this cowardice.